Hello, 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 world. This is Louise Hicks, your host of Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour. I want to talk about Ryan Clark's firing on ESPN. Now, he did an interview, so to speak, on The Pivot, where he hosts along with uh, Channing Crowder and Fred Taylor. They all are ex or former, I should say, football players. And they started this podcast called The Pivot, which I think is great. I like the podcast. So, what I'd like to do is give my perspective about the firing as we watch this podcast interview and why Ryan Clark provides information on his perspective of why he was fired. So let's go ahead and let's watch what he had to say. And throughout this interview, I will be discussing my thoughts. But let me share this first before I start the actual interview. So here we are. Now, I said this because I'm curious. Was it his color, his character, or both? Why did ESPN fire Ryan Clark? Did his perspective on Blackness and the Black community make some uncomfortable and intimidate some? He said he really loved his job. And he said he loved or he loves his community. And these are the hosts, Ryan Clark, Channing Crowder, and Fred Taylor. So, and I'm Louise Hicks. And I always believe, and this is my slogan, your power lies within you. Let it loose. And I believe in this scripture, 2 Timothy 1:7. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but that of power, love, and a sound mind. And in this interview, I do believe from what I heard from Ryan Clark that he's not a fearful person. He has the power to speak up, speak out. He has a sound mind and he has love for himself, his family, and his community. And I see that exhibited when he spoke. So let me stop this. And I want to give a disclaimer. I'm not an attorney. I am, excuse me, as you can see, a podcaster. I do have a social work background, a degreed social work background. I am 75 years of age. I've been on this planet for that long. I've had a lot of experience, a lot of exposure, and a lot of what he talks about. I have a clear understanding based on some of my own experiences. And some have criticized him for crying. I'm going to discuss that as well because I didn't find an issue with him crying. And I'm going to tell you why as I discuss and give my point of view about Ryan Clark. And by the way, from what I read, he's from my birth state, Louisiana. And that is an interest because I know what it's like to live in Louisiana. I lived there for 18 years, graduated from high school there, moved on to California. I've lived in Texas. In fact, I'm broadcasting now from Texas. So, with that said, my disclaimer, I can tell you that because of my exposure and experience, I can tell you that I don't have a PhD, but I have a PhD because I've done a lot, seen a lot, and I'm going to discuss it along the way. So this video will uh, be a little bit longer than usual because I want to play the entire video and give my insight as we move along in the video. So let's hear what Ryan Clark has to say, which I thought was powerful.
To have that taken away for whatever it is, if I could have been different in some ways, probably. You asked me on the right day, yeah, I would say I have some regrets.
Sacrifice ain't cheap, man.
The thing, it's like, the thing I just told you I loved comes at a price.
Yep.
I love them both. I loved my job.
We know.
I love talking football, and I love my community.
Hold up, limitless, niggas to me got pinning it. I fought the head to witness it. Got my people feeling militant. Way I'm finna get me up. On the mission, get me up. Knowing me, I got the key. Only vision I can trust. Trust, limitless, niggas to me got pinning it. I fought the head to witness it. Got my people feeling militant.
Welcome to a special Friday edition of The Pivot. That's Fred T. I'm Chan, Pivot fam. Thank you for pivoting with us. But RC ain't lose all his jobs. We have a special guest today, Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champion, 4-time Emmy Award winner, and former ESPN employee. We got Ryan Clark coming out.
Somebody had to do it. What up, brother? Somebody had to do it. What up, sir?
Hey, RC, you know how I always ask the guests, what's their biggest pivot, right?
Yeah.
I think this is the biggest pivot.
For sure.
For sure.
I think I'll look at it in 5 years, and if I was sitting down with Ryan Clark, Channing Crowder, and Fred Taylor, that would be the answer. Now, what happens from now is like the rest of the story, but I think the moment would be this moment.
You good? No, I joke about it, but you know what I'm saying? It's a serious situation.
I think, I'm definitely okay, but I feel for the other people who are going through this with me. Carl Ravitch been there 33 years. Charles Davis, one of the best men in the business, along with best analyst. Bart Scott, Cam Newton, Tom Pelissero, and like countless other behind the scenes people. And you think, what I learned about ESPN is so many people who worked there grew up close to ESPN. So they grew up with a dream of being there and being able to work behind the scenes and create these stories and tell this story. And now their job is gone, right? What I'm dealing with is, in truth, a first world problem. But there are some people who are truly counting on what ESPN was going to do for them to feed their family. And so my thoughts and my prayers are with them as well.
I think the big question is, did you see it coming? Could you take us inside that moment?
Yes and no. I'm upset with myself from this perspective. There were signs, but I truly thought for the first time in my life, I worked so hard at something. I was so good at something. Everybody acknowledged that I was, that they couldn't fire me. That they wouldn't fire me. That a company who's going to have the Super Bowl this year, who truly wants to put their best foot forward to the entire world and have the best people talking about football, wouldn't fire, in my opinion, this is my opinion, and it seems to be the opinion of many others, the best football analyst in the world. Mm-hmm. I didn't think that, and that's my fault. This offseason, our piece on Monday Night Football with Greg Brooks won an award, a diversity award. And our showrunner and our director and our producer were so excited, and it was like, PR is gonna post it. And it never happened. And eventually I just posted it myself, and then PR reached out like, oh, I'm so sorry that we missed it, but the Emmys are coming up and we'll post it afterwards. And I just remember sending a text to one of the people I work with, and I said, they're not gonna post that, they don't care. A company that posts about, cool things like spelling bees and post about the family feuds and all of these things, didn't care about an actual segment on our show about a young man like Greg didn't care about that enough because of me to use it.
Was that ever addressed?
No, it was never addressed. Family Feud.
Yeah.
They have an NFL Live Family Feud, a show that I've been a part of, that I won a sports Emmy for being a part of, that's won 2 Emmys in a row because of the core of Laura Rutledge, Marcus Spears, Dan Orlowski, Mina Kimes, and Ryan Clark. You go do Family Feud, and Marcus and I aren't there, but Marcus was asked. And when I reached out to the people who were involved, they just said, one said, we never asked for you. Another said, these 2 people were already on Pat's show, and that's why you and Marcus weren't on. But Marcus was asked, I wasn't. So there were just signs throughout the season, like even now. If you look at everything for the Super Bowl year, I'm not on any of that. A guy that's supposed to be a part of Monday Night Football, a man that's supposed to be a part of NFL Live, a man that's a huge part of First Take, was a part of building Get Up. So to me, the signs were always there. And I called, man.
Yeah.
I called executives, I called decision makers, I called bosses. Is my schedule changing? What's it look like? And it was never a definitive answer. But I think it was never a definitive answer because this was always the plan.
Yeah. And you're not a shy dude. Like you said, I know you ain't just sitting in the shadows with your head down. You're going to address situations. But if it's not performance-based, what's it based off of?
Well, to address the head down thing, what makes me a little bit sad about myself is I did adjust who I was to try to keep my job. I did have meetings with people and say, okay, what is it that you need from me? Not the analyst. The analyst he was damn good, right? If you care about the person that's on TV, what is it you need from me? Because I want to do that. I want to build a relationship. I want to involve you in the things I'm doing. You know, man, like this show, for 3 years, bro, we never shied away from any topic.
Right.
We never shied away from tackling anything. We did this year because I knew I couldn't have no beef.
Let me make a comment here. Ryan said something that stood out about making an adjustment. And he was making an adjustment to help others feel comfortable around him because of his intelligence, his ability to speak up and speak out. I know from my own experience, there are people, and it's not just white people. And if you're listening to this and you're not one of these, I'm not speaking to you because I know that there are decent people in every ethnic group. I'm speaking to the ones that aren't. And I can definitely understand where Ryan is coming from when he made that comment. Because throughout my career, and I've had a few careers, I have my own business now because I'm retired. I've worked in California and I've worked in Texas. And I can tell you that you can make others uncomfortable when they feel intimidated by your intelligence. I've had it to happen to me, and I'm old enough to be these guys' mother. I have a 52-year-old son, a 48-year-old son, and a 36-year-old daughter. I have 3 children, and I raised my children to speak up and speak out and do it with due diligence because nobody should disrespect you because of your intelligence. And I do understand, and I will address more about this because I understand this because it happened to me on jobs in LA, Los Angeles, I'm speaking of California, and in Texas, even with a Black person that wanted to make other ethnicities, being white, Asian, Hispanics, comfortable because I spoke up about something in an intelligent manner. And we should not have the fear to speak up about your own experiences in life. Just because someone else is uncomfortable because they do not wish to face the reality of the world that we live in. And this is what he was facing from what I'm picking up on what he's saying. So he loved his job. I loved my job too. He loves his community. I love my community also. However, there are ones in our community that will speak against you in order to make others feel comfortable. I'm not one of those people. And I do speak up and speak out about my community because I know we have some issues too that we need to deal with. So let me continue with the with his
I knew I couldn't respond to
conversation.
disrespect, right? I knew, for lack of a better word, I couldn't be too Black. What makes me sad is, even in trying to adjust to be at least more of what certain people wanted, they still fired me. And so I think that is difficult. I think it's about some of who I am, and it's about certain executives not connecting to that, not supporting that, not wanting to champion that, not wanting to give that the vast platform that is ESPN. And I think they utilized it to make an example of me.
But RC, you called some people to figure out what you can do. Did anybody give you a heads up?
Yeah, I gotten some heads up. I mean, summer ago, Stephen A sat with me, took me to lunch in Los Angeles. And he told me, he said, there's a particular executive that doesn't like you. Now, let me be honest. I had been hearing this for years, right? It had gotten to me so many times. And so having that dinner or that lunch with Stephen A was just confirmation of it. He's like, you need to go set a meeting. But so many times when I heard about this particular person, it was, he doesn't like you, or he's said this negatively. So I'd heard it a ton of times. And I got a call this off season from someone within the building. And, they said the way I stand up for our community is commendable, right? That they respected that in my position, I had a passion for that. But they also said it had created enemies for me at the executive level. It had created opposition, and that there were people within that building that were going to stand on the table for me. And it was such a shock because I thought to myself, in the most important year in ESPN football, you gotta stand on the table for me? Like, for me. Yeah. Like, there's somebody that needs to be convinced that our NFL coverage is elevated when I'm on TV. Like, there's a person that knows football. There's a person that knows TV that thinks that.
We're going to stop again because he was fired no matter what he did. He adjusted, yet he was fired. Now, I've never been fired from a job. And I'm going to tell you most likely why I wasn't fired from the job. Because I did my due diligence, I documented. That's important. But you don't let them know that you are documenting them. And that's why it's so important for us to understand the dynamics of working in this society, the American racist society. And yes, I said it because I know what it feels like. I know what it looks like. I've been there. No matter how smart you are, how intelligent you are, you can make some of these people, meaning the whites that are your bosses, even some other ethnicities that are your bosses. But right now, we know who the bosses are at ESPN. And they did not like him speaking intelligently. And I spoke earlier about, was it his color or his character or a combination of both? And based on what I'm hearing, it appears to me that it was a combination of both. They didn't like his character. They didn't like him speaking up and speaking out about his community. And we know there are a lot of people that feel uncomfortable when you start speaking about the Black community. They don't mind you speaking about toxic behavior in the Black community. You get followers, you get clicks. And some of those that are doing that, you know who you are. Oh, you're going to get a lot of clicks. That doesn't mean they love you, doesn't mean they like you. But we know, and he knows what it's like to be Black in America. I know what it's like to be Black in America. And when I say that, I'm not speaking of all the hate that comes from some. I'm not speaking of, I should say, the ones who are decent people. I'm speaking of the ones that hate. I rephrase that because that's what I'm speaking about. The ones that are dedicated to hate Black people, especially Black people that speak up and speak out without fear. And I am one of those people. I've never gotten fired because you know why? I documented when they didn't have a clue. And sometimes we are hired, especially with me, like being retired, going back into the workforce, being an older Black woman. Sometimes they feel, oh, I will hire them because I need their intellect, but I don't think they're going to be speaking up or saying anything. They misjudge you in many aspects of life. And I see this as a strong Black man, Ryan Clark, and those other gentlemen on the pivot, Channing and Fred. They're strong Black men. They're family-oriented Black men, as far as I could see in their speech, particularly when I saw the Tamron Hall show. I think it was a few years ago. They came on, and they are highly intelligent Black men. And that scares the heck out of some white people. And if you're not one of them, I'm not addressing you. I'm addressing the ones that are. And I say white people because it goes both men and women. I've experienced it on my job. I had this one woman, a white woman, who wasn't highly intelligent. She had the audacity to tell me that there are a lot of educated fools when she asked me about my credentials because I had an education and she didn't. However, she was my manager by white privilege. And I'm just calling it for what it is. And we're talking LA County. So don't think that these racist behaviors happen only in the South, because they don't. I lived in California longer than I have anywhere. And the first time that I was called a nigger to my face was in California. I was a student in college. We were at a sporting event. I think it was a football game, minding our own business. And here go these white people sitting in the bleachers like us. They started picking at us for no reason, telling us to go back to Africa and so forth. I mean, we could have told them to go back to Europe or wherever you were from. We were here before them. Our ancestors were here slaving so that they could have benefits that we were not getting. And I just call it the way it is. And I'm talking 20th century. And here it is, 21st century. I had the same experience here in Texas, not being called a nigger to my face, but taking some of the ideas I had, using them as their own, trying to do anything they could to cause me to quit. But I didn't quit, and they didn't fire me. So what we have to do is learn how to navigate ourselves through the system by documenting, making sure you have a solid contract. If your job calls for you to create a contract, most likely this is what Ryan has. I don't know what is in his contract because it's none of my business. However, whatever is in his contract, I hope that he's looking at it because he may have grounds for a lawsuit. Who knows? And if he does, he should exercise those grounds because we have to teach people how to treat us and how to respect us, because I heard he was fired while he was on the job. How disrespectful is that? And that's the coward's way out. Yes, I said it. It's the coward's way out. Because you're feeling so uncomfortable with this intelligent Black man that you just want him off the air because he loves his job and he loves his community. There's nothing wrong with either one. And I'm speaking because when I saw this interview with him on his show that he's part of, The Pivot, I had to come in and address it because I know what it feels like. Not being fired, but I know what it feels like not being hired. I went on an interview in Louisiana. That's one of the reasons I left right out of high school. Aced the interview, aced the test. It was at the IRS. I mean, I have so many stories that I can tell you about discrimination, racism, that it will blow your mind. Because a lot of these people cannot deal with your intelligence. It's called economic envy, especially when you are achieving and you're successful and you know how to articulate yourself. They don't like that. I've been there and done that. However, I never let it stop me from doing what I needed to do to protect myself. And that's what we got to realize. When you go on these jobs, you need to learn how to respect and protect yourself. You need to have an understanding of the MOU. And the MOU stands for Memorandum of Understanding. You need to have an understanding of your HR and who to contact. And most importantly, you need to know how to document. That's the reason I never got fired. And I worked for LA County for 32 years. and I worked in Texas for almost 5 years. Both jobs, I had to end up filing a lawsuit. I cannot disclose of the company in Texas because that was part of the agreement. But I'm telling you, it's not just in the South, it's all over, especially when you are successful, you can articulate, you can navigate, and you know how this system operates. So let's continue on. I just had to come in and give some perspective on what Ryan Clark has to be feeling because of what happened to him. So let's continue.
13 years in the NFL, Super Bowl, Pro Bowler, a captain, experience from being an undrafted free agent to trying to make the team to being one of the leaders in the locker room. 12 years of doing this. You got to convince that person that I should be doing TV. Mm-hmm. And, you know, what I learned was it wasn't about who I was in front of the camera as it pertained to football. It was about what I represented every time I got in front of that camera. And that is something that I don't believe you truly can combat.
When it's all said and done, that's the least anyone can do. I mean, you stand up and stand on, you know, the shoulders of, or for so many people. Like what you do, bruh, is unbelievable. So for someone to stand up for you, I think that's the minimum anyone can do. But to also, I want to put this to bed, because a lot of people have been having their takes about Stephen A., and you mentioned Stephen A. Is there anything Stephen A. could have done to make this go away?
No. Stephen A., with all of his power, with all of his influence, is not a true decision maker at ESPN. That's not his job title, right? That's not in the repertoire of what he's asked to do. And we get it so many times, right? And I get it all the time. Why do you ride for him so much? Like, why don't you come for him when he says these things? And I've said it on the show. I call him. Mm-hmm. I text him. I tell him when I think he's doing too much. And I have the conversations with him all the time. But when this company was treating me in a way that, at least in my opinion, was unfair as it pertains to what I'd accomplished, he was the first person to go, I want you. Mm-hmm. If they're gonna take you off of this or that, don't worry about it. You'll get your TV time on my show. Thursday and Friday will be Ryan Clark's days. That will never be forgotten by me. Mm-hmm. I will be forever grateful for that. That in a space that I was sort of being told, at least being who you are is going to make you lose certain things because you aren't these people that we covet, these people that we're comfortable with, these people that we take pictures with and put our arms around and show the world that we support them. I'll do that for you. And the loyalty he's shown me, the love he's shown me, the true hurt and pain in his voice when he called me around 4 o'clock Central Time on Monday, I will never forget that. We are forever friends.
You talking about 4 Central on Monday. What happened on Monday? Because you got, bro, you got 5-minute shifts. Get fired halfway through that job.
Hey, Chad, crazy, right? Hey,
where'd the other box go?
Hey, see, Smokey was trying to build club houses. You know what I'm saying? He was stealing boxes.
He was stealing boxes.
Hey, my box disappeared. You know,
your box went away.
Hey, they was
Came
like, damn.
Commercial. I said, then where's he go?
Yeah, so let me put this to bed. I wasn't laid off. I was fired. Right? They're using layoffs as a cover and a camouflage for what they already intended on doing. But there was no cause for it. right? So because there was no cause for it, you couldn't just fire me. So you had to wait to the layoff so you could camouflage it and veil it, right? But here's the other thing. If I was laid off, like everybody else, they came out on Tuesday. Mine came out on Friday. I get the call. I get a text from our showrunner that tells me to call my boss. I call my boss in the break, tells me they're letting me go. He said this is a very awkward call. This is a hard call. I could hear how hard it was for him. And if anybody was going to call me that was anywhere on the executive level, whether low or high, he's the person I wanted to, the way he's fought for me and rode for me. And he said, our friends, jokingly, at Outkick had the story and we're going to leak it. Let me tell you why I know I was fired. Because during the season, after some of the Kyron Lacey news broke, there were people on our network along with me that said something about it. Both of those people apologized, as did I. I didn't want to, right? I was told I couldn't come to work if I didn't. And at that point I said, well, I can't come to work tomorrow because I don't believe I did anything wrong. Some conversations happened and we got to that point. And Outkick wrote an article about all the people that apologized, two very prominent faces at ESPN. And they praised them for who they were and how they brought this thing back around. And they bashed me, talked about how negative I was and spoke about me in such a nasty way. And I sent an email at that time to Burke Magnus and Dave Roberts, who were working, because we were on an email talking about how we were going to handle it. And I was very poignant in saying, you have to watch who you listen to about me. There's certain people who want to paint me as a certain thing, certain people who want to devalue my voice, certain people who, no matter what I do, with all the great I've done, they've never mentioned that. But in this case, there are three people who are very important to this network, who all did the same thing, who all responded in the same way, and only one of us was vilified, and only one of us was a black man. And so how poignant, how purposeful is it to make sure that that's the exact same publication that gets the story that I'm going to be fired? Because you know what they're going to do? They're going to praise ESPN. They're going to pump ESPN up for getting rid of the person who stands up for the community. And they're going to say that these are all the reasons why I didn't belong on TV in the first place. So let's garner as much positive publicity as we can early before all of these people that you've seen come out on my behalf and say I was the best in the world at the job and I deserved better. One, I didn't deserve to be laid off or fired. It ain't about money. Two, I didn't deserve to be handled that way. So let's get ahead of it. And they were going to get ahead of it by leaking it to someone who they know hated me.
I would say, bro, how could this be that thought out when they just asked you if we could all, as a crew, come on First Take in August? That don't make no sense. When I saw it and how they did it and how outspoken you are about the community and how, like you're talking, some people don't agree with your stances and don't like that you were that open on their platforms. To me, it seemed like it was almost like buck breaking.
Slavery term.
You know, where you're the outspoken one, you're alpha. Let's embarrass him so everybody else gets in line. So nobody else talks crazy to us anymore, or goes through emails or whatever. Like, no, let's teach him.
They are right on target. They're on point. That's what you call the Willie Lynch syndrome. And that's what they would love to see us have. However, there are many of us who are not having it. Read Dr. Joy DeGruy's book. It's a great read about post-traumatic slave syndrome. Dr. Joy DeGruy. And it's so sad. Here we are in 2026, 21st century. And this mentality among some whites, other ethnicities as well, is still going on. And then we talk about divisiveness as if it just started. No, it didn't just start. It started from the inception when slaves were brought over. We're gonna speak truth here. We're not gonna sugarcoat it because that's when it started, the divisiveness. People are talking about, oh, Trump has created this. No, he didn't create any divisiveness. It was already here. I'm not going to say maybe he added to it by some of his comments and his actions, but he didn't create it. So pick up that book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGruy. And she's a psychologist who has spoken all over the world. Great speaker. And it's so sad that this man has to sit here and defend himself because any critical thinking person who is not afraid to speak up and speak out, you know why he was fired. He wasn't laid off. And I'm speaking from a psychological position because, as I gave the disclaimer, I am not an attorney. However, I do have a social work background, degree social work background, and I've lived on this planet for 75 years. I know how to navigate through the system. I've had to deal with it all my life. Even buying a house, I had to deal with it in 1999 because they had to change the covenant and deed restrictions. And if you don't know what that is, I don't have time to go into that. It's not, just look it up. Covenant and deed restrictions when you're buying real estate. They had to change it. We're talking Downey, California, where I bought a house in 1999. Black people could not even live in that community when it was built in I believe it was 1949 or somewhere late 1940s. You could only work there. They didn't mind having you as a maid or a yard worker. And it's too much hate from some of these people. And it's nothing but economic jealousy. That's why they destroyed. And then they have the audacity to say Black people are lazy. If Black people were so lazy, why did you go over and bring them over from Africa and with all the atrocities leveraged against them, make them work for nothing? Why didn't you do the work? So it seems like to me, your ancestors were the lazy ones. I just call it like it is. Like I said, God has not given us the spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind. And we do have power. I mean, we don't own economically equity like we should. We're not benefiting from our ancestors' labor with all of the atrocities that they suffered. And they were not weak people. This man is a strong Black man. That's why he was capable and exercised his power to speak up and speak out about the Black community and what's going on in it. And for those of you who are out here saying, oh, we don't want to hand out reparations, a handout. No, reparations to Black ancestors of slaves is not a handout. When you see their ancestors reaping the benefits of our ancestors' labor, what kind of handout is that? And slavery was not a choice, in spite of what some are out here talking about and talking about a documentary called Slavery was a choice or is a choice. No, if somebody capture you and put you in chains and bring you to an unknown country where you don't speak the language, do not allow you to read, make you work from sun up to sundown, whip your back until welts appear upon it, rape your mothers, daughters, sisters, brothers, throw babies to alligators, rape Black men and say they raped you. and kill them, hang women as an example. And that's exactly what he's saying. Here we are in the 21st century. This is August. I'm sorry, August. Today is August 3rd, 2026. And those behaviors are still being practiced, where some of us, they want to use us as examples so others of us can fall in line as second-class citizens. And we're just not having it because God has given us the power to not have it. Now, the equity, we haven't gotten to that yet. However, the way God is moving, I'm never going to say that won't happen. It may not be in my lifetime, but with the way things are now and how Black people are learning their history, our history, I should say, how who can go and build towns, your own neighborhoods, when you're so-called emancipated with nothing and it's destroyed because of economic envy and jealousy, where you have everything that you need within your neighborhood. You have your grocery stores, you have your own doctors, hospitals. I mean, this has been built in Black neighborhoods after the emancipation of Blacks. And you have some Black people out here buying into this nonsense. Food talk. That's what they come on social media to do, to appease the hate of some of these white people that are in power that shouldn't be in power. But I tell you what, they claim they are Christian. What did the Bible say about the last should be first? God is moving this country in a different direction. Look at everything that's happening now. But a lot of you so-called Christians, you're so heavenly bound, you're no earthly good. You're not paying attention because God is moving this country in a different direction. So let's continue. I just wanted to throw that in.
A lesson. Let's embarrass him on national TV so that they all line up.
Yeah, I think that could be part of it, you know. Like, I also know that this is a private company. They get to make their decisions based on what they want to make them on what they want to do. What I do know is they didn't take a vote. This wasn't about the majority, right? This wasn't about the people I work with day to day, because my phone don't say that. Production people who ain't worked with me in 5-6 years. Thank you for how you treated me. Thank you for the laughs. Thank you for your professionalism. Thank you for showing up constantly. You know, Monday night. Thank you for always. If we didn't have any talent on a meeting, you were always there. You were always on time. You were always building things for the other people on that set. Thank you. And so when the people you work with cry for you, man, that means the world to me. When I get the messages of like the fact that I supported you, the fact that I was there for you means the world to you. Like it gave you the legs to stand up and be who you were on TV. Like that matters. This was a dictatorship. A person or a group of persons, very small group, they didn't poll the majority.
Stopping again because he said a mouthful. They don't want you to be who you are. I'm only speaking of the ones that are hateful, evil-minded, evil-spirited. They don't want you to be who you are. They don't want you to be intelligent. Why do you think they would not allow Black slaves to learn how to read? However, there were white people who acted like Christians, and they taught these slaves how to read. However, they couldn't get caught doing it. That's how evil some of them were. And we're supposed to have been a Christian nation. No, they do not want you to be who you are. They do not want you to speak up and speak out. They want to exercise power over you. I had a white man to talk to me and tell me he was helping me somewhat with my son who had cancer at 14 and had some problems uh, that was a challenge to all of us, very tumultuous, that inspired me to write a book, an award-winning book. And I'm going to republish my book myself because I started my own publishing company. And I've been working on some special projects and they'll be coming out soon. But no, they do not want you to be who you are. They want you to be subservient to them. And like I said, it's not all white people, because if it wasn't for some of the white people, we would still be in chains, even though some of us are in invisible chains right now, because we don't do our due diligence, we don't read. And some of us, it's as if you're getting paid to degrade your own people. And Dr. Anderson, Claude Anderson, I learned about him back in the 1990s, and I read his book, Black Labor, White Wealth, and also Powernomics. And he has other books, The Dirty Little Secrets. I have all of his books. And what we need to do is read and educate our own children, because they're not going to get this in the public schools, believe me. Henrietta Lacks, another book that should be read, how they stole her cells and utilized them. And I don't know the outcome. I believe her family did file a lawsuit. I mean, some of these people have been nothing but thieves. And their families are benefiting from it. And some of our people have the audacity, for lack of knowledge, lack of critical thinking skills, lack of common sense, to jump on that bandwagon of these haters. They need to go and start reading and learn our history. And Ryan Clark was speaking up and speaking out. He was too Black for them. That was the major problem. So I understand what he's saying from a psychological perspective, from being on this planet for 75 years. He was fired not for cause of performance, from what I have seen. He made them uncomfortable because he intimidated them. And I'm just calling it like it is. He intimidated them. And we know how many of them got where they are, the powers that shouldn't be, off of the benefits of our ancestors who worked under the most severe atrocities and built America. And there are some who are saying Black people did not build America. And I said, oh my God, there's another one. Maybe they are being paid by someone to say these ridiculous comments or conversations. Social media can be good, it can be bad. It can be toxic, and it can be relevant. It depends on who is speaking and what they're saying. And some of you will jump on any bandwagon, no matter what. Like, vote blue, no matter who. Joe Biden on the Breakfast Club saying, if you don't vote for me, you ain't Black. I didn't vote for him, but I'm Black. That was such a degrading remark to Black people. And I know a lot of Black people overlooked it and voted for him. And that's their business. They have a right to vote for whoever they please to vote for. And it's okay with me. And then some people have the audacity to say, oh, if you don't vote, you don't have a voice. That's a lie. You pay taxes. Even if you don't own real estate, you pay taxes. You pay taxes on everything pretty much here, and everything has skyrocketed. It's particularly since COVID. It seemed like that was a scam, so everything could go higher. And they had Dr. Fauci, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. If I mispronounced it, forgive me. Had him up taking the fifth, but he did it to protect himself. And so much went on back then. And a lot of these people that were out there trying to disgrace him, they didn't have any, these politicians, and they didn't have any problem taking those loans. And most of them didn't even have to pay it back and didn't pay it back. But they want to disgrace him. And when you think about it, this whole system is corrupt. So I'm happy to say and see these three Black young men speak up and speak out. Because yes, I do believe he got fired because of his character, his intelligence, and speaking up on behalf of the Black community in a non-toxic way. Like I said, go read some of these books. Henrietta Lacks. I can't remember the author of it. Dr. Claude Anderson, Black Labor, White Wealth, Powernomics. Dr. Joy DeGruy, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And a lot of you probably don't even realize this so-called father of medicine operated on Black women without anesthesia when it was available, because these people feel that we don't have pain. And here we are, 21st century. That's how they think, the hateful ones. I'm only speaking and addressing the hateful ones that the so-called white supremacists, which what is supreme about hate and evil and thievery, living off the benefits of our ancestors that built this country. I'm not saying they didn't contribute, because they did. However, they were too lazy to build it. They didn't do that. They went over and got Black people, Africans. So let's continue. I know this is going to be a little bit longer podcast, but I wanted to do this because from a social work psychological perspective, some of these podcasters out here to get clicks, to get more subscribers, to get that paycheck, they'll say anything. And they were criticizing, some of them, Ryan Clark. And we're going to get to that part more. But one thing I can say, we need to have more businesses that can employ our people. And we need to have more educational institutions that can educate our children. And we need to start educating ourselves and our children from our home, because they're not going to get this in the public school system. I'm telling you, I raised my children in one where my daughter went to private school until she was in junior high. And my sons both went to public school. And I'm telling you, I had to go as a dedicated parent that stayed in touch with the school and challenged them sometimes because of their lack of knowledge or their prejudice, bigotry, racist behavior. I had to go to the school sometimes and challenge these white teachers, and even had to challenge one Black teacher, because sometimes our own people have low expectations of our children. So with that said, let's get back to it.
Yeah.
They didn't ask that question, because you asked that question, Now you gotta say, even though you told me just how important he was, I don't care. I don't care. I know how important you think he is, and you work with him every day. I don't care how important you think he is. I don't like him. People like me don't like him. They keep calling my phone. I don't want my phone to ring no more. Right? There's other things I'll defend. I'll defend talking about another executive. I'll defend that. I'll defend sabotage. I'll defend getting sued. I'll defend all those things. What I'm not going to defend is you standing up for Angel Reese and everybody being mad about the way you did it. Or about what you said about, I'm not going to defend that. No. I'm not going to defend you standing on 10 toes for them all the time. It's not what I'm going to do. I'm not going to take those calls. And that was the decision that was made. And I believe that that has a large role in why it was made.
Bro, we know how much you love what you do and how hard you work and how passionate you are. And we've seen numerous occasions where we've had opportunities on this show to make X amount of money, and you help us understand that it's not about the money. It's about the quality of the work that we have to put out and the lives it's going to touch. So we agree with you. It's not about the money. It's never been about that. It's about your job and simply what you love to do. But when you text me, like all the other people you spoke about, I said, man, this man lying. April Fools, it ain't even April. I didn't believe him, but I didn't want to respond that way because it caught me off guard. And I was like, ain't no fucking way these people are that stupid to do one of their best, but people like that. And I ain't saying that because we rock, but I just know what it is. But even then, you know, I started searching the internet and trying to figure out, like many people might be, like, what happened? Like, what's going on? Like, is this a Netflix doc situation? Like, what's really going on? Yeah. And we've been hearing reports about, you know, the disagreement with Peter, right? Yeah. They're trying to pit you and Pat against each other. Mm-hmm. And so many other things people are trying to stir up and figure out what's going on. Like Chan said, like they're looking or waiting for a scandal, right? Yeah. But it's simpler than that.
Oh yeah, it's no scandal. Let me be very clear. I love Pat McAfee. I think what Pat McAfee set out to do really put in place a blueprint for a lot of us. Like, can we do it and be accepted or received at that level, at that amount of money? Probably not. He's an anomaly in that way. But I respect and admire what he's built so much. Right. Peter Schrager, like me and Peter don't have an issue, right? I would think if you'd ask him right now, obviously after what went on with us, there's been nobody that's nicer to him. And I do want to address that as well. Going into last season, that was when I met with the executive and said, hey, look, I can only see one reason why you'll have a problem with me, because it's not my work. And I get my schedule. I'm supposed to work Thursday, Friday on Get Up and First Take. I fly in on Wednesday night. That's what my schedule says. So I fly in on Wednesday night. I never get an email. I never get a text message. Normally you get that about the production meeting. I don't get that. So I wake up in the morning and I was like, well, you know, I'm not working. I'm texting, hey, am I off of it? And I cut the TV on and Taylor and Will are on, which, like, I'm happy for them. Mm-hmm. Them boys worked hard to get that opportunity, right? Go do your thing. But I was upset because, wait, you can't call me and tell me that the schedule's changed? I don't deserve the respect of believing that this is my schedule? And along with some other people, we built Get Up. That junk was dying. Your original idea didn't work. So it was Dan and it was Marcus and it was Culture Wednesday with me and Dominique. That's why that show lasted to be what it is that you turned it into now. And the people who I built that with, y'all just couldn't call me and just tell me, RC, we made another decision. And I asked, man, and another thing I'm mad at myself, I begged and begged to be back on that show because it meant so much to me that we built it and to be on it. And he just kept telling me, people aren't doing both shows. Dan's doing both shows all the time.
Yeah.
Damian Woody's doing both shows all the time. Peter Schrager's doing both shows all the time. And so I'm already feeling something. And you go into that Friday, and Greeny had said and Peter had exchanged a couple of times that neither one of them ever played. And we're talking about CeeDee Lamb. And I tried to be very thoughtful in the way I approached it, because I wasn't trying to say you don't have an opinion because you didn't play. I was trying to say you have a different opinion because you didn't play. And maybe I didn't get that across in the right way, right? I can accept that. But then he raises his voice at me. He's like, don't belittle me and this and this. And in the moment, I'm like, I'm on TV. I'm not finna have that back and forth. Let me be calm, let me de-escalate this, and let me truly explain what I mean. That the in-helmet perspective is different than the out-of-helmet perspective. And so we get in the break, man, and I walk off, right? Because I'm upset, because I'm knowing what's gonna happen, because he said I belittled him and he raised his voice at me. And he's like celebrating the segment, like it's a great segment. But I'm already knowing the person who loves you don't love me, and they make decisions here, and we just had that happen. Yeah. And while he's celebrating, I'm just telling him, like, man, like, don't effing disrespect me like that. Because I'm knowing what's going to happen. Now, at this point, I'm standing over here, right? I've gotten out of my chair, which is 2 away from him. I'm standing over there. And obviously, they recorded and they showed me the video. And I'm talking to people who've been there for 12 years, man. And they like, we thought you were going to get aggressive. What? The person you've been knowing all this time who never did anything, who's never had an altercation here, was going to get aggressive from over there? So now you're trying to paint this angry black man trope of me that you know is not true, but I'm starting to feel the narrative. I feel what you're doing. You get me on the phone and people are telling me you gotta work better with people. Work better with who? Everybody I work with loves me. Like, real talk. Everybody I work with, they F with me the long way. Like, I ain't the best teammate. Hell, Jason Kelsey called me just to tell me that. Wow. And so I was just seeing the narrative that was being pushed and seeing the way it was going. And then even that, much like what happened with Outkick with my firing, they leaked that video. And when they showing me this video, it's the video from the control room. So if that's gonna get released, that's somebody that works for us. Yeah. Right, you've been here 12 years, you have this incident, I want people to know that about you. I'm getting calls, we got the video's been leaked. We're gonna show this. And honestly, I was trying to keep my job at the time. I should have told him, show it. Show him that he celebrated, show him that I walked away, show him that I was a 46-year-old man that said the F word from 15 feet away from somebody. But me and Peter talked. Yeah. Me and Peter fixed that. Me and Peter had the conversation. Me and Peter moved on from it, right? And what I wanted to do from him from that point on, because I heard what he said, I never wanted to make him feel that way, whether intentionally or unintentionally. So anything he wanted to do on TV, any point he made, any conversation he wanted to have, I was going to have it with him. I was going to support him. I was going to be a good teammate, because that's what I did for everybody else. And like, that was unfortunate, but that's not why I'm fired.
You're a stand-up guy. You've always preached accountability. Looking back over your 11 years at ESPN,
12,
11, 12, is there anything you would do differently, or do you leave knowing that you were fully yourself, or, you know, what are your thoughts, man?
That's a good question. It depends on when you ask me. You know? Like, you ask me, like, when I see people in public, like OGs and like aunties and stuff, and they tell me they proud of me, and they proud of like, And they probably like the way I represent the community. Yeah. I wouldn't change anything. Because that means the world to me. You know, or like, when I go home, and this kid, you know, from the West Bank is like so accepted in New Orleans now. Like, I wouldn't change that. You know, never. You know, like, all I ever wanted to do was be accepted. You know, and want it. So yeah, like that, I wouldn't change. You know, if you ask me, probably the first like Monday of football, when all my friends get to do something like we did, like super special together, yeah, I'd probably change it. You know, I'd probably work harder to like be who they wanted me to be, or
Yeah, I have another perspective here because Ryan said all to be was accepted. And we sometimes have an illusion of inclusion. And I think some people probably took, maybe I'm not in his head, but being accepted because I picked up on him prior saying he wanted to be, or he was rather, a team player. And I'm thinking along those lines when he said he wanted to be accepted in the sense of being a team player. Because when we're on a job, we should rather work together for the best production or the best productivity that we can produce if we are an employee for an employer. Because we know that's what's going to put a meal on our table. And I believe perhaps he used the word acceptance, but because of what he said prior, my thought came to mind accepted as a team player, not accepted as a human being. Because when we came into this world, we were accepted by God. So whether another human being accepts me or not, I could care less because that's your problem, not mine. Now, when I'm on the job, I want to be a team player and I'd like for my contributions not to be stolen because that has happened to me. My contributions have been stolen on the jobs. And that's why it's so important that we become entrepreneurs and we teach our children so that we can have our own businesses. And that's a lot about what Dr. Claude Anderson talked about in terms of powernomics and in terms of Black labor, white wealth. We know our ancestors did all the labor, but who got the wealth? And when we did establish our own communities, neighborhoods with the wealth, what did they do? They destroyed it. And they destroyed it with the government's help sometimes. And that is what really Fannie Lou Hamer, some of you need to know who she is. There's a documentary on YouTube. It was on there that you should be watching that as well. Because she was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And a lot of us that are not perishing for lack of knowledge, we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. That's why it's so important that we have our own businesses. Again, I stress that, and educate our own children. And I'm not throwing shade at any other ethnicity. If you are a righteous minded person, this does not include you. I'm talking about the evil ones with these evil hearts that nobody can regulate, because you cannot regulate a person's heart. Whatever is in them, whatever they are taught, because this racism, prejudice, bigotry is taught. We're not born with this. And I'll give you another example. Like I said, I can, being 75 years of age, I can write a book. I worked as a teacher's aide when I was in college getting my bachelor's degree in social work at a predominantly all-white school in Long Beach, California. And I was great at my job. I loved my job. I had a great teacher who was white. She even took me to her home. She would give me a ride because I didn't have transportation. And she appeared to be genuine, because there are some genuine people, like I said, from other ethnicities. If it wasn't, we'd still be in slavery. And this, I had one particular little white girl who would come up to me and always give me a hug. I love you, Miss Hicks, because I treated the kids with dignity and respect because of my character and how I was raised in the same state that Ryan Clark was born in, from what I read, Louisiana. We were raised to treat people the way you want to be treated. And I'm taking he probably was raised that way too. And that's why he is the intelligent, strong Black man that he is, that intimidates the cowards who are jealous of his intelligence, his ability to articulate. And none of us is perfect. We make mistakes. But what we should is learn from those mistakes. And from what he's saying here, he's learning that inclusion is a delusion with many that are in power, because they do not want to see us elevate ourselves to a higher level of consciousness. So that's why it's so important that we read, do our due diligence, and stop jumping on some of these toxic podcasters, social media pimps, hustlers, vultures, because that's what many of them are. And I got out of the Democratic Party when I was in my 30s because I did do a lot of reading. And I saw the handwriting on the wall. I did not get in the Republican Party either, because sometimes I think they're almost one and the same. They probably go golfing and their country clubs that they don't want you to be a part of, and probably laugh and talk about their collusion and how they operate, because politics is corrupt. The executive, judicial, legislative, all of those branches of government. The U.S. Supreme Court, look what they just did. They allowed the borders to keep being opened. They didn't care about the illegals coming to the country. I don't have an issue with immigrants coming into the country, but they should do it the right way. You can't go to China and have an anchor baby and say you're a citizen. China, Turkey, what's that other country? Come in here having anchor babies. And when he cries, I understand why, from a psychological perspective. You don't know what this man has gone through on that job. I don't believe from my perspective and what I've heard thus far, that he is crying because he was fired. He is emotional from my perspective and what I'm seeing, his demeanor and what I'm hearing, because he's a human being and was so humiliated by what these evil-hearted people, cowards, did and how they did it. And why do you think God gave us tears anyhow? For those of you who were saying that has to do with his manhood, and no, it does not, from my perspective. It has to do with him being a human being. Who says a man is not supposed to cry and show some emotions? God gave all of us tears. Why do you think God gave all of us tears? Why do you think God gave us 2 ears and 2 eyes and 1 mouth? Some of us talk so much and we don't even know what we're talking about. And we don't have the compassion, the fruit of the Spirit. So I'm not against him crying in public. That's why God gave us tears. You can cry anywhere you want to and when you want to. There's nothing wrong with his tears that God gave him because he's a human. He's a human being. God gave us our tears to use because of our emotions. And God knows in America where we live as Black people, many of us have a reason to cry because you don't know what this man has gone through to make adjustments for these uncomfortable cowards, because that's what I call them. They're cowards. And he should be proud, and so should his family be proud of him standing up for his community because he knows the plight of his community. I know the plight of our community. Being born and raised in Louisiana, left out of high school, moved to California, went to college in California, my first time being in an integrated educational environment. I had an adjustment to make, but I was happy that I was raised in a segregated community with my people who loved one another and showed nothing but love. We could leave home and leave our doors open, didn't have to lock our doors. We could walk down the street without being attacked or afraid to be attacked in the community where I grew up, Cooper Road, USA. Had our own grocery store, our own cleaners, hardworking people, teachers that loved us and gave us an education. I remember our teacher, one of our teachers, Mr. James, this man went out of his way to plan a curriculum for us, the students that were elevating themselves and doing their due diligence. And I graduated number 5 in my class of 200 and some students academically because I knew and I saw the hate within America at an early age. I remember in my mother picking cotton when I was about 4 or 5 years old. I didn't go to kindergarten because we didn't have kindergarten for us. And they had these little white overseers, teenagers, calling all the Black women aunties, auntie this, auntie that, auntie that. And I got a lot of my mother in me. One day, my mother was like Fannie Lou Hamer. She had gotten sick and tired of being sick and tired of this little white boy calling all of these black women, Amy. My mother looked up at him. I never will forget this. And she told him, my name is Mary. I am not your Amy, and I want you to call me Mary. He looked at my mother and he said, okay, Mary. She had the power in her to speak up without fear to this white boy who looked to be a teenager. And I'm remembering all this, and it has stuck with me today at 75 years of age, how my mother and all those black women were treated by this little young white kid. And you know where he got it from? He got it from his environment that he lived in, like the little white girl that I shared with you that used to come up and hug me and tell me she loved me. And then one day I was waiting because I was taking driver's training so that I could get a car because I was taking the bus. I didn't have the economic opportunity, nor did my parents, to get me a car to go back and forth to school. So I had to take the bus. And I was waiting for my driver once I had finished with my second grade class. And I was about, I guess, 19 or 20 because I was in my sophomore uh, year of school at California State University, Long Beach, where I graduated from. And this little girl came up to me and asked me, are you still here, Miss Hicks? And I said, yes, I'm taking driver's education, learning how to drive. So I'm waiting for my driver. And the little girl looked up at me and she says, is he a nigger like you? And I looked at her and I said, where did you get that from? I said, because no, I'm not a nigger. And she says, my mother said people like you are niggers. And that has always stuck with me. And let's fast forward several years later. I was at a religious convention and I had gone to the concession stand to get a drink and something else, maybe something to eat or popcorn or something. And I heard my name called. This was several years later. Miss Hicks, Miss Hicks. I looked around. I looked around to see who was calling my name. It was this little white girl who was a teenager. And I didn't recognize her, but she recognized me. So you can have a profound impact upon people that you don't know whether you will ever meet again. And she said to me, you don't remember me? And I said, no, I don't. And she told me her name. And when she told me her name, I immediately knew who she was. And I said, oh, I called her by her name. I said, you're all grown up now. What grade are you in? She said she was in the 10th grade. And I said, oh, you're at this religious convention. She says, yes, with my family. So you never know what kind of impact you're going to have on a person. And the teacher had asked me to come and assist with open house. And she came to the open house with her mom. And when they walked in together, we're going back now to the second grade. Her mother turned a different shade of her original color when she saw me because I don't think she was expecting to see this young Black woman in the classroom. She never came near me. She avoided me, but she looked like she could have slithered like a snake underneath the floor. So I know from her reaction that her daughter told her exactly what I said because I told her daughter, you tell your mama that I am not a nigger, that niggers are ignorant people. And she must have told her because she never came toward me the whole night, and nor did her daughter because she probably had, I guess, was afraid to show any kind of reaction because of what her mother had shared and told her. And I said, I pity people like that. But somehow at that religious convention, perhaps her mother had been educated and had changed her whole outlook on life because they were at that convention. And I hope she did. And I haven't seen her, the child, from this day to this day. I've never seen her again. So I don't know what happened to her. I don't even remember her last name. I only remember her first name. But we don't know what kind of impact we're going to have on someone when we share something that could be everlasting with them. So, Ryan, I say to you, cry if you want to, because God gave you tears to shed. And you should be very proud of who you are. And one thing we have to learn, that in inclusion is an illusion for many environments that we're in. It's an illusion of inclusion because many of them do not want you there. And if they don't want me there, I don't want to be there because I don't care about anybody's acceptance of me, because I want to live righteously and treat people the way I want to be treated. And if you can't accept me for that, so be it. I don't care. That's on you and whoever you are claiming to be, because I don't care. I don't have an illusion of inclusion. I look at your action as a human being. I look at your character as a human being. And I'm not one of those persons that want to be tolerated and feel that I have to be validated by you. When I came into the world, I was already validated. God gave me that validation. I have been all of my life the little black girl with a dream that grew into a black woman with a vision, because I was always reading. I love to read. I was always reading as a kid. We had something that you may not have heard of. We had a bookmobile that would come around in the summer. I would always grab several books every time the bookmobile came around, and I would read about different parts of the world and how they lived, what they did, because I wanted knowledge. I had a thirst for knowledge. I had a thirst for writing. That's why I became an award-winning author. And I'm going to get my book republished, and I'm going to self-publish it, that chronicles the tumultuous experience that we as a family had when my son, that's now 48, was stricken with cancer at 14 years of age. And I know what it's like to be criticized because of who you are, how you live, even from our own people. I had a person to tell me from my book that Black people don't live like that. And I said, they're in darkness. I spoke to the person because we have to come into the light. And the only way you're going to come into the light, you have to enlighten yourself through reading, through personal experiences. And most of my podcasting is really based on my own personal experiences, but I share the experiences of others like I'm doing here because I want to elaborate and give a righteous perspective, not something toxic. And that's what so many of these content creators are doing. They're hustlers. They're social media pimps. And they will say anything to get clicks and laugh all the way to the bank because they know they have bandwagoners that will jump on anything that they say And it could be a bunch of food talk, as my grandmother would say, because they are perishing for lack of knowledge. And they are not laughing all the way to the bank, believe me, but you are because of your social media pimping, your hustling of others who are perishing for lack of knowledge, the vultures who just wants to pick all the meat off of your bones so that you can keep on following them and listening to the toxicity that are not providing you with information to enlighten you, to uplift you, to help you to understand what it's like to be Black in America and what you can do to empower yourself because you're not powerless. You have a brain. You just got to use your critical thinking skills. God has given us that power, and nobody can take away your brain. But if you want to allow it to be taken away, that's on you. And I will not allow anyone to take away my brain and my critical thinking skills. No way. And that's what Ryan Clark exercised. And those cowards did not, they couldn't deal with it. Here's a young Black man with the intellect, understands how to navigate himself through the system, has a very powerful podcast with two other former football players, Channing Crowder and Fred Taylor. They can't deal with that. That's economic envy. And they know, as Black people in this country, we don't have the equity that we should have. We don't have that equity. Collectively, I'm talking about. We don't have it. There's some out here that have achieved, but they don't have wealth. They have richness, but they don't have wealth. There's a difference between richness and wealth. Who has the wealth? The white people have the wealth, but Asian people are creeping up on you economically because it's about unity. And that's one thing that I'm so happy to see, that we are coming together with unifying. That community, the UNITY, that means a lot. We have to have unity in our community, and it's happening. And we got to start doing our due diligence, educating our children, having our own business, doing business with one another, as long as there's character and integrity there and we're not scamming one another. And I'm going to talk about that too. I'm going to do a podcast about that because we need more of our elders to come forward with some wisdom for these younger generations, because many of these younger people are lost. They are perishing for lack of knowledge. They think they're not lost, but they don't have an understanding. They don't have wisdom. And a lot of us baby boomers, we have become complacent. We're just sitting around watching TV or whatever, just waiting. And I'm not one of those people. I try not to let any green grass grow under my feet. And that's what I hope to see more of. And as far as life goes, we should be elevating one another. That's what we need to be doing, elevating with one another, communicating with one another in a positive way, not toxic, like all this rap music. And guess who's behind it when they're calling us out of our names? You know who's behind all that. And these rappers, some of them would say anything, while the producers are laughing all the way to the bank, but they will not let you degrade their women. I haven't heard one yet, and I don't even listen to the trash that they produce. I don't listen to it because that's what I call it, trash, when you're degrading your own community. talking about the women, calling them names, advocating drug usage, advocating killing one another. That's not helping us. That's toxic behavior. And you're getting paid to degrade your own people, and you don't care. And some of us are buying the trash. That tells us we are still entrenched in post-traumatic slave syndrome, the Willie Lynch syndrome. Go read it. You'll see what it could transform your mind, and we should be about transformation. So let's go ahead and move forward. And I know, like I said, this is a long one. Maybe I'll divide it in two parts, and maybe I won't. I'll do some shorts or whatever. But I had to come in once I saw the criticisms about Ryan Clark crying. Leave that man alone. He's a strong man, standing up for his people and his community. There's nothing wrong with that. God gave him those tears to use, and he's using them. So let's continue.
Like build relationships with like bosses or executives, you know, cause like it's just a relationship game. Cause like I just see these people on TV who like aren't better than me, but I know I've never been at the tables they've been accepted at. So yeah, you know, there's some things I think I would do differently because I feel like I let them win. You know, I feel like there's a group of people, a faction of individuals who wanted to like devalue my voice, who wanted to take away my platform. I feel like I let them win, you know? But then there's the other side of it of like, my platform isn't as big anyway, or it's not as impactful anyway if I don't do those things. If I'm not that person, if I'm not authentically me, right? And it's not even something I can prove that if I was different, they wouldn't have fired me. I can't prove that.
Tough.
Right? So if I can't prove that, why? I would have hated to be fired being something I wasn't. Oh my gosh, that'd be the worst. Yeah, man, like my kids, like, they love me. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But I felt like I let them down.
Never.
You know, like, regardless of how much like money I was able to save and all the opportunities I was given, that's why I'm so focused on like the other people who lost their job. It's like, this helps us, right? My kids get to live a certain way. I get to take care of my parents. I get to help, you know, my brothers and my brother and my nieces and my nephews and so many people because like I'm in a place to where I can have excess because of what I can do so good. And to have that taken away, you know, for whatever it is, if I could have been different in some ways, probably, you asked me on the right day, yeah, I would say I have some regrets.
Sacrifice ain't cheap, man.
I know, you know, the thing, it's like, the thing I just told you I loved comes at a price.
Yep.
Right? I love them both. I loved my job.
And we know.
I love talking football. I love studying it. I love educating people on it. I love making people laugh about it. I love entertaining people. I love the people I work with. And I love my community. It doesn't mean I don't love them all. It just means like, that's the one in particular. I could speak from a matter of perspective.
You would still have one if you let the other one go. In my opinion, if you stop talking, if you stop doing, you know, racial justice stuff, if you stop talking about Angel Reese, if you stop talking about Lakes, if you stop doing that, you could still be doing football. Am I wrong?
Probably not. I do know that when I was negotiating this contract, I sent a message about how hard I was working to get this deal done and how grateful I was they had given me the opportunity to work at ESPN. And the message I got back was along the lines of, well, you'll be good if you're here, you'll be good if you're not. You know, it wasn't you got some things going on, let me fly out and come talk to you face to face, that he's done for other people. So I think this company in a lot of ways has been showing me, you know, and finally now, here we are. I had a conversation over the summer with Jeremy Lin, of all people. Kerry Chow, he used to work at ESPN, good friends with Jeremy Lin, called me and he's like, hey, can I give Jeremy your number? He wants to talk about getting into business and you the best I know. You the blueprint. Okay. Having a conversation with Jeremy, he says, what's a piece of advice you can give me? I said, build relationships. I said, because you're gonna need somebody to stand up for you sometimes. I said, don't think the work is just enough. And I said, if it's not a part of your being, don't let people know where you stand socially or politically. If you don't feel like you have to stand up for people, that's not what's popular, that would put you in a space of the minority, that would in some way make you a threat, then don't do it. If your job is more important than those things, just be quiet. Because if you do, there could be opposition. And if you don't have the right relationships, you won't get through it. And I was like, and I'm dealing with that right now, man. I was like, I don't know if I'll be working in the fall. And he said, you? He's like, you the best in the world. He's like, there's nobody better than you. And he goes, and in 2026? I said, in 2026, brother, that's where we are. It's just been so many things like that I think I look back on throughout this situation and you wonder if it could have been different.
Man, RC, I was trying to figure out who was going to pass who the tissue. I think all of us are crying.
That was a tough one.
Yeah,
I didn't expect
it was
it.
tough.
I expected anger out of RC. I ain't gonna lie. I expected you to snap. When we start asking you, I didn't expect you to get emotional, man.
Yeah.
You got me going.
But I think the beauty in what I'm hearing is, I think that's what this show is. That's what, the pivot, why it was created for moments like this, moments of adversity, moments that test your resolve, that test your character, but also, the togetherness, the community, banding with each other. And one thing I've noticed in the comments, now becoming creeping, how many people are in support of you?
Yeah.
But even on our trip from Baltimore to over here, just the amount of calls and texts, the people that are reaching out to you. What do you have to say to those people that have shown their support?
I think first off, to anybody who's called or texted me, the thing they know is I've called or texted back. I am obligated through the love I feel to make sure they know I'm grateful.
Right.
Man, from current players to former players in every sport, to coaches, to entertainers and actors and comedians. Like, you don't know the reach or the relationships that you have or the way people feel about you when everything is going good. And I'm gonna put him out there, and not even sing them. Isaiah Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
Pistons Isaiah.
Yeah.
Zeke.
Called me 5 times because we played a little phone tag. And he told me, he said, first of all, I want to tell you, I love you. I'm lifting you up. And he goes, and you won't hear from me all the time when it's going well, when you up. But I'll always be here when it's down. And he said, and you're going to come back up again. And during that time, you might not hear from me. But just know, and it meant the world to me, and that not just him, but it was like, that's what you need.
Mm-hmm.
And it went from the NFL Live group chat to the Monday Night Countdown group chat, to friends, to family, to associates, to players I know, to slight acquaintances, and the stuff people have done for me publicly, the things people have said about me publicly. You know all the time, man, like when somebody's going through what I'm going through, and when it could be some of the reasons I'm going through it, like to stand up for me. Some people I never met in person. Like I've never been a loner, right? Like I've always had friends and I've always supported people, but I've also always tried to be like, I'm gonna be good no matter what. And man, like I needed it, you know? Like even though I felt it was coming, like it's one thing to feel like it's coming, it's another thing to get fired. It's another thing for them to be like, we don't want you, you know? And it was just, and it's always just been very hard to hear that a person doesn't like me who never tried to have a relationship with me, who doesn't know me. I wasn't gonna win.
My favorite one was Shaq. You didn't understand what the hell he was saying, but hey, young boy, I don't know him. But I knew it was love, though. I can tell it was
I understood
love.
he loved me. Hey, Chad, the one thing I understood was, I love you, brother. Like, I understood that, man. And I do want to say, though, too, man, to everybody, thank you so much. You don't know what your calls, your text messages, your DMs, your tweets, your threads, just all of it, man. And like the thing I know is that this is the topic this week. Next week, it'll be less a topic. By the time the season starts, it'll probably be no topic. And I'll be sitting at home on the first Thursday of the season or Friday or especially the first Monday, you know, and I love football.
We know.
So I'm gonna be watching the game. I'm gonna probably be watching the pregame, and it's gonna be hard, you know? And like at that point, you know, like everybody's life's gonna move on, and it should, right? Like I'm alive and I'm fine.
Yeah.
You know, because this career is not over. So this is like a very weird thing I'm about to say probably. I know when football ends, it's like a death, right? But it was like I got to say, hey, you guys can put me to sleep. Right? I was able to say, guess what? I am ready to go.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This wasn't. Bro, like, I worked so hard at that, and I was like, man, I'm gonna work at ESPN until I stop doing TV. I'd already had my plans that like I was gonna do some old man stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wanted to be like Berm, like just pop in and be great. They go home.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like that was my plan. And that can't be my plan no more. Everybody I ever worked with, behind the scenes, in front of the camera, to obviously in our NFL Live crew, to Stephen A., to the Dave McKinnons and the people at First Take, to Monday Night Countdown, Marcos, obviously everybody I'm on the desk with, Ish. Man, I love y'all so much, man. And it's like, I want to see everybody win. Like, I want to see those shows flourish. I want to see y'all flourish. So it ain't no, like, I'm not here, like, harboring no hate, man.
RC, I know, man, this is your platform, obviously. We know this is where you would answer the questions, but we've asked you enough questions. Actually, I have a question for the execs. I really want to know, is it all of the things that he's done for the company, all of the great things that he's done for a community that needs him, the leadership that he's shown, the people that he's defended? He's a black man in America. We know when black men are overly qualified, they become a threat. And for me, it pisses me off, because I know how hard he works. I know how passionate he is. And to see somebody behind the scenes that can make this decision, and I don't want to taint this whole entire interview, but I think just like I want to know, everybody else wants to know why. Why was Ryan Clark selected? It's just mind-boggling. It doesn't make sense.
You know, what that brings to mind is a speech my mom gave me when I was younger. She told me, you gotta work twice as hard, you gotta be twice as good, you gotta be twice as smart. And she said, even then, they may not pick you. I thought I got to a point where I'd be picked. But I mean, it's like I say though, just because I wasn't picked, that don't mean I ain't chosen. And, you know, I can't answer the question about why.
RC, man, we love you. You know that too.
Yeah.
But this doesn't define you, bro. What you did for DeMar, the DeMar Hamlin night, the Greg Brooks, and to be honest, man, I like the football side. I like you giving Dan O hell on that little dry race board, whatever thing y'all got. I enjoy that stuff. I love football, but you're one of the best at it.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say before we go, one is I love y'all both.
Hey, brother.
Like, I love y'all like brothers, so sometimes I don't like y'all.
Sounds about right.
Just being honest. Like sometimes like, man, you know, and then there's sometimes like last weekend where I get to hang around y'all a lot. And I'm like, man, they are so cool in that capacity. I just really like being around them, you know? So thank you for this, for giving me this space to express this. I wanted to do it with y'all. When the thing happened with Peter, I didn't know what was next. I didn't know what people thought of me. And I'm not gonna say his name, but there's someone very high up at ESPN who doesn't say a lot. So much so, you really be feeling like he don't mess with you. I was in the trailer the first Monday night, calls me out of the trailer, and I was like, oh, here finna be somebody else telling me how stupid I am. And he told me, he said, I don't know about everybody else. I don't know about every other show. I don't know what they're gonna take you off. I don't know what they're gonna put you on. I don't know about that. But you'll be on Monday Night Countdown. You'll work at halftime. You're gonna finish every night with Scott. Cause you're the best we have. And I remember walking back to the trailer, like skipping. You know what I'm saying? Cause I was so down and I was hiding it. Cause I was like, man, they gonna try to get me over this. Like, do they even? And I just remember walking back and being like, he's right. I am actually the best. And to you, and you know who you are, I'm not sure you'll watch it. Thank you. Because as I walk away, and I know certain narratives will be spun, certain lies will be told, certain clips will be played and compiled to make me seem like one thing over 12 years where I did so much, where I was nominated for 3 Emmys, where I won an Emmy, where shows this year, just in this alone, NFL Live, Monday Night Countdown, and E60 I was a part of, all were nominated for awards. 2 of those trophies come home with me. When I'm on TV, they don't put 4 sports Emmys on there. They never did that for me. I just want to say, when I walk away, because of you, because of that conversation on Monday night, I walk away knowing that I was the best y'all had.
Hold up, limitless. Niggas to me cap pinning it. I fought to hear to witness it. Got my people feeling militant. Way I'm finna get me up.
Okay, let me stop sharing that. And I'm going to elaborate just a little bit more. And I'm going to close this out because he said a few things that I did not want to interrupt until the show was over. So I go back to my original picture here that I shared. Was it his color, his character, or both? Why did ESPN fire Ryan Clark? Did his perspective on Blackness and the Black community make some uncomfortable and intimidate some? Because he loved his job, he loved his community, he's highly intelligent. They have a highly successful podcast, The Pivot, where their hosts, Channing Crowder, Fred Taylor, Ryan Clark, all strong, intelligent Black men. And from my perspective, the way that ESPN chose to do that shows they were uncomfortable with him because he spoke up, spoke out about his community in not a toxic way that many of these YouTube, as I call social media pimps, hustlers. He wasn't doing that. That makes a difference. If he was doing all of that, like some of these, particularly Black podcasters, are doing, making those people comfortable because they love to hear those kind. Now, if it's not you, I'm not talking to you, white people. I'm talking to the ones that are like that because we know they exist. I have experienced them in the job market. That's why it's so incredibly smart for us to have our own business. I do admire that about Dr. Boyce Watkins, who started his own business school. He's very intelligent, PhD, has a wife, Alicia, very intelligent. I've listened to her, listened to both of them. We need to teach our own children, educate them. That's important. And I'm speaking from experience because I went to an all Black school. I know what that feels like. I know what it looks like. And that's what we need. We need our children to be taught by those of us that understands, has the wisdom to educate our children on what it's like to be Black in America. And that's not divisiveness. That's about common sense. Who knows more about us than us? Those with the wisdom, the critical thinking skills, who are not just out to make a buck by saying anything that's derogatory and not uplifting to the Black community. We know we have many behaviors that need to be corrected. But just think about where we've come from as a people. That's saying a lot, an awful lot. And to these young men from a baby boomer that's 75 years of age, I love and admire all three of you. Channing Crowder, Fred Taylor, Ryan Clark, that's your story. And as Les Brown would say, that's your story. And you stick to it. No matter what anybody say, who are these people that are out here judging? They probably wish they were in your shoes. And believe me, from one mom to another mom, I don't know what your age category is of your mom, but I'm 75, as I said. I'm a proud 75 years of age woman, Black woman. Your mom told you right. We have to learn how to navigate in the system. And I'm so happy. It sounds like your mom reminds me of me. I have so many children that are you guys' ages that call me mom. And they will call me and ask me for wisdom. And I share my wisdom with them and my experiences because I know what it's like being Black in America by the haters. Don't worry about the haters. You said your career is not over, and you're right. Those cowards did you a favor, actually. From my perspective, they did you a favor. And you said you didn't let them, you let them win. No, you didn't let them win. They may have money, but they're losers. That's why they fired you, because you were too intelligent and too Black for them. They were uncomfortable about the truth, and you intimidated them because of the cowards that they are. I don't care how much money you have. It doesn't matter to me. And I have worked hard all of my life because you know what? I have this slogan: your power lies within you. Let it loose, because your destiny is your command. They cannot provide you or give you your destiny. God has given you the power, the love, and a sound mind. And I heard it all right here on the pivot. The way you three young men addressed the situation, the crying, it's okay. Like I said, God gave you those tears to use. God gave us emotions as human beings. So, no, they didn't win. You're the winner. They're the cowards. They were so disrespectful in how they did it. And you have character, you have integrity, you have your dignity. They cannot take that away from you. You have your self-respect. You have your family. You have your friends. You have people that support you like myself, 100%. From one Louisianian to another Louisianian, I, Louise Hicks, support you 100%. And I know that your career is not over. You have so much to give. And it's going to take you a lifetime to keep on giving. Don't let anybody stop you from your destiny, your vision. Don't allow it, because nobody can stop you. You can, and you are unstoppable. And they fired you because you made them uncomfortable and you intimidated them because of your intelligence. They can't deal with it. I've been there and done that as a female on the job. And I have my own business now. I have my own publishing company that I just started. And your career is not over until you say it's over. And I don't see you saying it's over anytime soon. And I know your family, they are proud of you, your biological family, as well as your social media family, except those that are haters, like the cowards that fired you. And that's okay. They did you a favor, believe me. They did you a huge favor. So, with that said, I am happy you said that you don't hate. You're full of love, because that's what God said. Gave us not the spirit of fear, but a power of love and a sound mind. And you have it all. So all I can say is keep on pushing. Remember that song? Keep on pushing, keep on pushing. And they are not winners. They didn't win. The cowards didn't win. You're the winner. I love this interview. I'm happy that I had an opportunity to unpack my thoughts on it. Again, I'm Louise Hicks. I know this is long. I'm going to give some shorts from it because I am happy for you and Fred Taylor and Channing Crowder, the voices of the pivot. Keep on pivoting, because if we don't pivot in life, what else are we going to do? We're not going to stay the same. We're going to pivot. So you've just pivoted from the cowards to independence, your freedom. You have your freedom now. That's what's so important. You have your freedom. So use it wisely. And again, I'm Louise Hicks, your host of Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour. Like, share, and subscribe, because this interview that you shared with your fellow podcasters can help someone else to recognize and realize that be who you are. And if they don't like it, so be it. Stand up for what you believe in. And don't let anybody stop you. And as far as being on someone else's job, you have to know the rules. You have to learn the MOU. Again, I speak that, the Memorandum of Understanding. You need to understand how to navigate, how to document, but you don't let them know what you're doing. I recall a very high level Black man who was so highly intelligent over a bunch of white, intimidated, uncomfortable men that were not as intelligent as him. And he had to carry a little black book around documenting. But they didn't know what he was doing. I did the same thing. I documented. They had no clue. That's why I never got fired from a job. I knew how to utilize the system to protect myself. So learn how to utilize the system to protect yourself. And if you have to file a lawsuit, file one. You will find an attorney to take your case. Look at your contract, people. When you're making contracts with these companies that you will be an employee of, make sure that your contract is well written. Make sure that you understand the MOU. Make sure that you know who you are working for, because they don't want you there. Sometimes you're there because of they needed a Black person to say they have inclusion when they know it's an illusion. They know what it is, and it has nothing to do with your intelligence or your performance. Like when I was on the job and I knew what they were doing to me, they called themselves trying to write something up on me, didn't know that I had all the scoop on them. And I'd write them back up. You write me up, I'm going to write you up because I got the goods on you. And that's what we have to learn to do. And most importantly, start your own business. Even if you have to do a partnership with somebody else, we need to have our own businesses, our own educational institutions, our own banking institutions, our own food industries. And it was done before. So that tells a lot about our intelligence as a people. We had our own communities. But guess what? Economic envy destroyed them with the government's help. And I repeated that because I wanted it to sink in, because your power lies within you. We have to let it loose. We cannot allow these people to think that we are or feel like they can make us second-class citizens because they think that they are supreme when they're not. I mean, I've worked with them. I'm 75, remember? I've worked with them. I know them. And for those who are not unrighteous like these haters and these people who think they're supreme, I'm not talking to you. I've had white people to speak up on my behalf. I've had Hispanic to speak up on my behalf. So there are righteous minded people in other ethnicities. I've had Black people that are afraid to speak up. Why are they afraid? Had nothing to lose, but yet they are still living in that enslaved mentality. And when you live in that enslaved mentality, you're not going to follow 2 Timothy 1:7 that says, for God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. That didn't just go for the white people. That went for you as well, because we all are made in God's image. We're human beings. If you cut me, I'm going to bleed just like you bleed. So keep that in mind. So, Ryan Clark, you are the winner. They are the losers and the cowards. So, with that said again, I'm Louise Hicks. I just wanted to come in and shed some light on this because of the critics out here more concerned about this man crying than being concerned about the psychological effects that this job has had on him over 12 years. You don't know what this man encountered. I can appreciate him crying because of what he went through. It's not so much about he lost a job that he loved, it's the humiliation, the disrespect that he helped to build something that they didn't have. And I know how that feels. I've been there and done that. But keep your head up, Ryan Clark. Keep on doing what you're doing. Your career is not over, as you stated. And remember the advice that your mom gave you as a mom to only biologically three, but a mom to many who come to me for advice. Some of the Gen Xers, the millennials, and the other generations. And my granddaughter that comes to me for advice, what to tell her mother and her father. She's funny. I love her dearly. She's going to be 12 tomorrow. So happy birthday. I call her Sweet Sweet. Happy birthday, Sweet Sweet, my one and only granddaughter. Love you. I won't be at your birthday celebration, but I know you guys will have me there on video. You always do if I'm here in Texas. So anyhow, everyone, I'd like to thank all of my supporters. I thank the Pivot for sharing this most important video. And I love seeing these strong, young Black men that don't let anyone intimidate them or take away their power because they know where their power lies. And with that said, I will see you in the next video. Please share, like, subscribe, thumbs up, and keep on pushing. And I will stop sharing. And again, see you in the next video.